Everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Higher Levels Workplace Excellence webinar, and today you are joining to talk a little bit about digital transformation and the value of business. So before I introduce Marissa, our speaker, I would like for you to just review a couple housekeeping things. This call will last 30 minutes today for the webinar. If you have any questions, you do have the ability to type in the question box, and I will relay those at the end of the PowerPoint. So feel free to put your questions there. And thank you for joining us. So a little bit about Marissa. She is the Salesforce Marketing Manager at Proficient, and she basically has kind of worked as a digital marketing strategist in the St. Louis area for several years. So when I was thinking of different topics to outline my calendar for the year, she came to mind as being able to share some great information with us. With a marketing specialization in a content creation and engagement, develops and executes online marketing strategies that include inbound, social, and influencer relations to create purposeful and meaningful content. She is the St. Louis chapter president of the Business Marketing Association and stays actively engaged in her community, holding board positions for the Midwest Digital Marketing Conference and Urban Harvest. So Marissa, I turn it over to you to share your great information today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Erin. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I think as we look at digital transformation, especially for small and medium-sized businesses, even the thought of it can feel very daunting. What is it? How can it help? And especially, how can it help small businesses? So a little bit about Proficient. We are a worldwide technology consultancy with 3,000 members or employees that we partner with major technologies to implement these different solutions for enterprise level businesses around the world. And so when you take some of those tactics, a lot of those can still be applied at a small business level. And so that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on today. So one interesting stat that I did see from Salesforce was only 48% of small businesses plan to transform their business for a digital future, yet many don't understand exactly what that is. And so I think just to start everything out and get some definitions out there, digital transformation is really how businesses are using digital technologies to create or modify existing business processes, practices, models, cultures, and customer experiences to meet changing business and market dynamics. So that's basically a way of identifying how you need to adapt your business to drive customer loyalty while maintaining a competitive edge in a digital age. So let's get started here. So digital transformation, why should we do this? You know, whenever you think about digital transformation, it's not just the files that you manage. It's not just your POS system. It needs to be a real holistic approach. You know, every part of the organization, from operations to the technology, obviously, but what it really does is it really starts with the people. And so, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine that it's a top-down approach, but it's really a company-wide approach. A lot of the businesses that really embrace digital transformation, and I even want to back up to say, I think we all are taking those steps. You know, people are now using email instead of pen and paper. So as we've seen this fourth industrial revolution start to take hold, a lot of these business processes are a lot more normal than you might anticipate. And so it's really taking what you're already working with and polishing it up so that it can really work for you and your customers. I mean, a lot of businesses, you start with people first. That can be employees first, but customer experiences will make or break a business. And so that's where digital transformation can really impact the user experience. You can drive operational agility. You can be more nimble as an organization. As things change, having that flexibility is crucial. Uniting and enabling employees, the power that digital transformation has on HR is incredible. One big trend that we're seeing right now are communities, and especially workplace communities. So the same way, LinkedIn and Facebook, they all have groups. People are starting to consume information in a more peer-to-peer setting. And we've seen that as social media has started to change the way that we trust and relate with brands. And so you really need that peer validation. And so a lot of companies who have had pages, say on Facebook, um, everybody's been affected by the changing algorithms. And so page views are, just not what they used to be. And even with paid advertising. So a lot of places are creating Facebook groups. Here in St. Louis, STL Content Marketers is a wonderful resource on Facebook that people go to and have a conversation with like-minded peers. And so you can take that same approach and turn it to your company, turn it to customers, turn it to partners. But specifically for employees and HR, you're able to have all of your forms all in one place, different message boards. So if there's something like a company picnic, nobody misses out on that information. And then also important company updates, especially if you have many employees. Trying to keep everybody educated and up to date on all of the latest information can be quite a task. And so employee communities are a great way to share that information. So really improving business processes, it lets you innovate your business. And then anytime that I would say create loyal customers, but it's really about creating loyal users. So as you can see here, we've got our digital prey, digital predator matrix. And I think it's pretty fair to say that most people are going to want to be more in the digital predator. That's wherever you can be a master of your operation. You're actually connecting all of your different systems, and you're truly operating your digital transformation. And so, a lot of businesses have traditionally viewed technology as a way to really support what they're doing, potentially do it faster. But with digital transformation, what we're seeing are companies who want to go from that digital prey into the digital predator box, that they're really taking a step back and asking themselves, what are they doing? Are they doing things in the right excuse me, are they doing things right in the first place? Can they change their processes to better enable decision making? Can you have more personalized customer experiences? When you step back and start asking yourself those questions, you come to find that everything has changed fairly rapidly, and business as usual might not be the way that you're going to see the most success and growth. It's time to be more of a disruptor. And so that's where being a digital predator is going to be a big benefit for you. So customer experience, you often see it places as CX as an acronym, but when you think about your customer's experience, we're seeing things deviate from the traditional marketing and advertising model. So instead of having a channel specific campaign, say email or TV or radio or direct mail, all of these things are all still incredibly valid and especially work well together. But what you have now are multiple screens. So somebody might be sitting there, and I imagine many of you are right now. There's a computer in front of you and a phone in your hand. There could even be an iPad sitting on the desk. And so you have to make sure your marketing message is aligned with all of those different channels and when the person would be using them, at what time, what reason they would be using them for, and then making sure that the messaging is concise so that it's the same message across everything, but it's being delivered in those unique ways that people are familiar with per device, per network, per channel. You know, a lot of the trends that we're seeing that are driving change, customer expectations. I mean, I know myself as a user, uh, I expect when I go into a store that I've made a large purchase at, that they have a record of it somewhere. And if I have a question about it, that they can access it. One of the projects we recently worked on was Ashley Furniture. And if you can imagine, Ashley Home Store, this huge company, had been using pencil and paper like a lot of businesses. And we were able to go in there and help build them an app that all of the salespeople are now using, that they can go and reference past customer orders, which then enable them to make more thoughtful recommendations. You can potentially upsell people if you know what their likes and interests are. So there are a lot of real world applications to understanding your customer. And so as the customer expectations rise, you have to make sure that you have the technology to remain competitive. Continual connectedness, just like I talked about, you know, we might have multiple devices in front of us. People are connected all the time. I think we're even starting to see a bit of a revolt against that as people are, you know, having unplugged weekends and things like that. But from a brand's perspective, you have to be there when your customer wants you. That's great if they want to take the day off, but a brand doesn't get to. And so as you are driving adoption on these different channels, you know, making sure that it can be maintained is really important. And that's where a lot of things like artificial intelligence bots can help provide that initial contact to help manage some of this, because as small businesses, or any business really, it's always going to be a matter of available time and effort versus budget versus skill set. And so all of those things are always going to be in a little bit of a different ratio. But also, as we see, tech lowers barriers to entry. And so if we have any sort of slow response time on anything, customers are automatically going to view that as untrustworthy and leave. Um, and then abundance of customer data. I mean, with GDPR happening and all of the different privacy laws that people are now paying a lot more attention to, making sure that you are compliant and educated around digital transformation is more important now than ever. You know, I think this was a nice stat that Gartner shared, 60% higher profits than competitors. I mean, the numbers don't lie. There are probably 10 different stats I could have put on this page, but ultimately, applying a thoughtful, strategic, digital strategy roadmap to your business, no matter how big or small, will impact your bottom line. So here's another one, a 10% increase in customer retention, and then a 30% increase in the value of the company. So again, that goes back into how your customers actually view your company. And if you have any sort of control over that, I really encourage everybody to really maximize that. This is another visual that shows how people who embrace digital transformation outperform those that don't. So I think, again, the numbers don't lie. It's right in front of your face. And there are lots of opportunities to help make that happen. So, how do you, after you understand you have the need, then what's next? Then come the operators. Uh, So whenever you look at your technology as a strategic asset, you're able to apply it in all of these different and get all of these different benefits. One thing that I like is at the very bottom left, you're able to use context to make it more personal. I think anytime you're able to reach your customer with a message that is personal, and you can appeal to that human emotion, you automatically gain more trust and credibility in their eyes. So if you can use technology, and artificial intelligence again is great for this, it'll actually read the context and sentiment when it's delivering you your reports back, so you can make those more thoughtful connections. So here are some examples of digital operation at work. We talked a little bit about Ashley Furniture, and then Walgreens has started using an API to make its photo printing kiosks. Anybody can go in there and design now. 7-Eleven also has a new mobile app, and that is beneficial in showing the daily business results. And then Netflix also has another example of how they have applied digital operations with their Chaos Monkey. And so how do you transform? It really becomes with changing from the outside in. We talked about it being a holistic process. So it starts with the culture. You've got to have people on board. You have to look at the different processes that marry those people and the technology together, and how is that all going to benefit your customer? So understanding all of the touch points of your customer's journey. What insights are they getting? What experiences are they having? At Proficient, we actually have this Envision framework that I wanted to share. I think it's pretty adaptable. We have several tools that go into each of those different sections in depth, but anytime that you start with something, you're going to have your assessment. You have to know what's going on. Who are the stakeholders? What are we trying to accomplish? And you've got your benchmarking. Where are we starting at? Where's our competition at? And then that's where the research comes in, and that's where data, a lot of that fits in. And then same with the analysis. So after you have your assessment, then you move into building your strategy. So that's whenever you identify your vision and goals, your capabilities, what can you actually deliver on? And that's a real important time to be very honest. I think, as you think about digital transformation, there are so many flashy, fun things like AI and bots, et cetera. But you really have to make sure that you're keeping it back to what you can actually deliver on. This is also where you would do your empathy mapping, your customer journey, and then what are your anticipated outcomes. So after you have your strategy built, then you would move into the planning session, and then the ultimate deliverable from that is going to be a roadmap, and that's what's going to share your step-by-step plan to bring your company on board for digital transformation. So these are a couple steps for the process, and I am going to go through these a little quicker to leave time for Q&A. But again, really understand what your content and your capabilities are. What are your goals? How are you going to get there? And then what does it take in order to make that happen? Oh. So at Proficient, we have a cross-disciplinary approach, but I think that these are all things that are really good for you to take into consideration. Customer experience, digital transformation touches each of those particular pieces of the customer experience. So one thing that's really important as you go through this is to make sure that you're keeping your brand in the forefront of all of the discussions, because you want to make sure that you're maintaining that familiar brand that customers are used to relating to. And then also I'd like to point out the change management piece. There are so many different strategies that you can look up for change management. Proficient has a whole team dedicated to it. But I think that what's really important is if you don't go into a project, as adopting a new technology or embracing digital transformation for whatever that looks like for you, without a solid change management piece to your strategy, you will not be able to drive adoption. And so again, it really goes back to the user and making sure that that user has all of the tools that they need to embrace that change. So again, it matches up customer experiences with the operations. And then the way to start, I wanted to make you guys aware of a really cool tool. So this customer experience IQ maturity assessment is something that proprietary tool that we created, and it's totally free for anybody to do. So I definitely encourage doing that. And then also take some time as a group to map out your customer journeys. Once you have some of those key pieces, then you're able to really make sure that you can align it with your business. So the customer experiences, you're creating them and then you're delivering them. So these are all key pieces to your strategy that you want to make sure are included. And the biggest part, make sure it's sustainable. Make sure these are things that you can actually accomplish. Make sure you have the tools and processes in place and ready to go before you get started. That's going to be the key to sustaining digital transformation. So here's a little overview of that customer experience IQ. These are some things that you would include in your journey mapping. And here is how you would align it to your business. So making sure that you're answering these questions. Okay, this lean canvas exercise is another good one to go ahead and try. You can go in and answer all of those questions. And I think I wanted to provide you as many different tools because not all exercises are going to work for all teams. And it's really whenever you go through several different ones that you start to identify what's best going to help with your business alignment. So, but ultimately it will require an innovation workshop. And so this is a matrix that you guys can use to identify if your strategy aligns with some of your business goals. And I think that is the beginning of an introduction to digital transformation. I think, as small business owners, as you tackle digital transformation, what you need to really focus on is doing that internal assessment first. Identify the gaps, problems, potential threats, work with skilled consultants and partners, and make sure that you work together to chart out the best paths for success. So, are there any questions from anybody?
All right, thank you, Marissa. So now's the time if you guys have any questions, feel free to type in the question box at the bottom of your GoToWebinar page. I'll give you another minute or so. Great information, Marissa. We really appreciate it. We are working on improving our technology and information with higher level. So definitely took down a couple tips today to pass on.
Yeah, and I mean, one thought to kind of finish on is digital transformation, it doesn't stop whenever your plan is complete. It's an ongoing process. There's always going to be a next step to take. So, the real key to success with it is making sure that you're nimble and adaptive. And again, that really comes from a top down approach. So, if you can model that for your business, that change is okay. And whenever it happens, when there's a new algorithm that changes the way that you have to outline your social media strategy, that's okay. You move forward, you roll with the punches.
Completely agree. All right. Well, I do not see any questions, so we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning, and thank you to you, Marissa.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Have a great day, everyone.